Prabhupada ki jai. Shishi Vanitai ki, Shri Krishna Balaram ki jai. Shishi Nitai Sachi Sutta ki, Shishi Jagannath Baladev Subhadra ki, Shishi Radha Parisisvara ki, 23Aout bhagavatam ki, Radha Purim ki, Premanandi, O glorious the assembled devotees, O glorious the Gauranga, O glorious Sri Prabhupada, O Hare Krishna, recited today, Srimate Bhakti Yoga Meditation, Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pacharine, Yadasesha Sanyavari Prastyachate Chatarine. Jai Shri Prabhupada. We are reading today from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 20, Text 22. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti Yoga Prabhupada. Kindly repeat. Kaye Balihi Tasya Mahavibhute Sahavittik Acharyastasya Etat Tadasha Vishvam Trigunam Gunatmake Bhuta Indriya Artha Ashaya Jiva Yuktam Kaye Balestasya Mahavibhute Sahatvigacharya Sadasya Etat Dadasha Vishvam Trigunam Gunatmake Bhutendriya Tashaya Jiva Yuktam Kaye Balestasya Mahavibhute Sahatvigacharya Sadasya Etat Dadasha Vishvam Trigunan Gunatmake Bhutendriya Tadash Ashaya Jiva Yuktam Kaye Balestasya Mahavibhute Sahatvigacharya Sadasya Etat Dadasha Vishvam Trigunam Gunatmake Bhutendriya Tashaya Jiva Yuktam
Kaye Balestasya Mahavibhute Sahatvigacharya Sadasya Etat Dadasha Vishvam Trigunam Gunatmake Bhutendriya Tasya Jiva Yuktam
Kaye Balistasya Mahavibhute Sahatvik Acharya Sadasya Etat Dadasha Vishvam Trigunam Gunatmake Bhutendriya Tasya Jiva Yuktam
Kaye Balistasya Mahavibhute Sahatvigacharya Sadasya Etat Dadasha Vishvam Trigunam Gunatmake Bhutendriya Tashaya Jiva Yuktam
Kaye Balistasya Mahavibhute
Sahatvik
Acharya Sadasya Etat
Samadvigacharya sadasya etat
Tadarsha Vishvam Trigunam Gunatmake
Tadarsha Vishvam Trigunam Gunatmake
Bhutendriyarthasya Jiva Yuktam
Bhutendriyarthasya jiva yuktam.
Ladies,
Kaye
Kaivalishtasya Mahavibhute
Samadvigacharya sadasya etat
Tadarsha Vishvam Trigunam Gunatmake
Tadarsha Vishvam
Trigunam Gunatmake
Bhutendriyarthasya Jiva Yuktam
Bhutendriyarthasya jiva yuktam
Kaivalishtasya Mahavibhute
Kaivalishtasya Mahavibhute
Sadvigacharya Sadasya Etat
Samadvigacharya sadasya etat
Tadarsha Vishvam Trigunam Gunatmake
Tadarsha Vishvam Trigunam Gunatmake
Bhutendriyarthasya Jiva Yuktam
Bhutendriyarthasya jiva yuktam. Kaye, in the body, Balihi, Maharaj Bali. Dasya, of the personality of Godhead, Mahavibhute, of that person who is equipped with all wonderful opulences. Saha Ritvik, Acharya Sadasyaha, with all the priests, acharyas, and members of the Holy Assembly. Etat, this. Tadarsha, so. Vishvam, the whole universe. Trigunam, made of three modes of material nature. Gunatmake, in that which is the source of all such qualities. Bhuta, with all the gross material elements. Indriya, with the senses. Artha, with the sense objects. Ashaya, with the mind. Intelligence and false ego. Jiva Yuktam, with all the living entities. Translation. Bali Maharaj, along with all the priests, acharyas, and members of the assembly, observed the Supreme Personality of Godhead's universal body, which was full of six opulences. That body contained everything within the universe, including all the gross material elements, the senses, the sense objects, the mind, intelligence, and false ego, the various kinds of living entities, and the actions and reactions of the three modes of material nature. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In Bhagavad Gita, the Supreme Personality of Godhead says, Aham sarvasya prabhavo matak sarvam pravartate. Who knows where that verse is from? Aham sarvasya prabhavo.
The number?
Pardon?
The number or the number?
Yeah, where it's from in the Bhagavad Gita? 10.8, very good. Yeah, it refers to what's usually called this address, the Chatusloki, the four, like, seed verses or verses which contain the essential subject matter. 10.8. Krishna is the origin of everything, basically. Of all that is material, all that is spiritual, everything comes from Krishna. There is nothing that exists that doesn't come from Krishna. Whatever we see, whatever it may be, may not be very pleasing, but it has its origin in Krishna. Perverted, eh? It's like all the light in the universe has its origin in the sun, right? It comes from the sun. It may be perverted in various ways to produce various effects, but it comes from the sun. Everything comes from Krishna. through the modes of nature, things become, transformed. They appear to be transformed into different effects. Krishna's everything. Vasudeva Sarvamahiti. Everything we see, it may be very hard for us to, let's say, realize this, but actually everything is Krishna. Whether it's a wooden table or the sky or the moon or the bodies which we live in. Everything is a form of Krishna, of his energy, transformation of his energies. Vasudeva Samaya, Krishna is everything. Matstani sarvabhutani nachaham teshravasatitaha. Everything rests in the body of the Lord. Yet the Lord is not everywhere. We find this verse in the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Looks like we're having a Bhagavad Gita lesson today, in purport by Srila Prabhupada. So in the 9th chapter we find these verses how everything is in Krishna. Krishna is sometimes said in everything. Everything is at the same time. It's not. Yes, Krishna is also aloof from everything. It's his energies. He's not like us. He's not born into a particular physical form and being conditioned. His form is transcendental. His body is transcendental to the material modes of nature. And the science of devotional service is to understand that transcendental nature, as we heard the other day, Janma Karma Tamedivyam. One who understands this transcendental nature, the Lord does not take birth again, but attains the highest perfection back to Godhead. So, this is the nature of the Lord. He can do anything he likes. Everything is resting on him. Everything's resting upon him as pearls are strung on a thread. Nothing is separate from Krishna. There's no truth superior to Krishna. None. Everything rests on him. Ham sarvasya prabhavo, as today's purport indicates. Everything rests upon him. One who knows this engages in his devotional service. So it's pretty important to know, because by engaging in devotional service, one can go back to Godhead. Krishna reciprocates. So it's pretty important to know Krishna's opulences, Krishna's supreme position. Not enough just to know pastimes. We have to be convinced that he is indeed the supreme origin of everything, and in one sense is everything. Nothing exists outside him. As we see in this example of Bali Maharaj, when Lord Vamanadeva expanded his form, the whole universe was covered. Described 2 steps. First step, the lower, middle, and the next step, the higher planets. Everything covered, there's nothing left. Ordinary person may be able to cover a little bit of distance, but not much. But Lord Vamanadeva covered the whole universe with his 2 steps. See, it means he expanded himself to cover the whole universe. Everything rests in the body of the Lord, yet the Lord is not everywhere. Mayavadi philosophers think that since the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the absolute truth, has become everything, he is no separate existence. He's become kind of like whatever you want to call it, merged into, diverse, whatever it is, and he no longer has his own individuality. Like you may sometimes they say it's like a pot, is when you break the pot in the air, inside just merges into the air, it has no separate identity anymore. Inside the pot it may have some apparent identity of its own. Once the pot is broken, then the air has no more separate identity from the mass of the air. Well, of course the living entity is not air. The living entity is eternal spirit soul. There's a comparison which can be used in one sense, but it's not. Has to be qualified. Even that air which merges into the totality, or the water that merges into the ocean, still maintains individual characteristics apart from that of others. Nothing is identical in that sense. Though it may appear to be so, it's like they homogenize milk. They make it all one type of thing. Everything looks the same. But every atom is still individual. Every cell is still individual. Just looks the same. Their philosophy is called Advaitavad. Actually, whoever their philosophy is not correct, here Bali Maharaj was a seer of the personality of God, his universal body. So this is form which Vamanadev revealed is one of the forms of the universal body. He saw the whole universe in the body of the Lord. The universal body, universal form, covers everything. Here Bali Maharaj was a seer. And that body, that universal body, was that which was seen. So there's the seer, the seen, and the means of seeing. Generally we understand the seer as the soul. But what can we see? With our imperfect means. We don't see the actual reality there. We're seeing some perversion of it only. The actual real seer is Krishna. Krishna is seeing us. We are unable to see without him, even in this universe. The Lord, the sun, the moon, consider the Lord's eyes. Without the Lord seeing, we cannot see. And without the Lord's being, let's say, the origin of those capacities, we have no capacity. All abilities come from Krishna. He's the ability in man. Everything comes from whatever opulences we may have, whatever strength we may have, is simply a mere reflection of the Lord. He's the origin of all strength, the origin of all wealth, beauty, fame, knowledge, renunciation, and so on. They're fully reposed in him. To a minute degree they may manifest in the living entity, in the material world perverted, in the spiritual world purely, but only a minute quantity. Minute. We can never compete. People try sometimes to compete with the Lord, but they're always defeated. No one can compete because he's complete. We are complete in our own selves, but we're not the complete whole. We're a complete unit, not the complete whole. So Krishna is a complete whole, though he appears in this world as if he's an ordinary man. Fools deride me when I appear in this human-like form. They do not know my transcendental nature and supreme dominion over all, but people are covered over, illusion, under the influence of the modes of nature. So everything we see is tinted by the modes of nature. So we see whatever coverings we have, we judge things accordingly. We have no true spiritual vision to see things as they are. The process of devotional service is to purify the means of seeing. So we can start to see things in their correct perspective. Otherwise, if we simply see through the dirty mind and senses, then our conclusions will always be wrong. Our choices will be wrong. We have to see through the eye of Shastra, Guru and Sadhu. We purify our senses. And as the senses become purified, everything becomes clearer, revealed. But as long as our mind and senses are full of material stuff, material desires, ambitions, reactions from material activity and so on, we can't see. Only those who take Yesham Ganta. Is that verse called? Yesham. Jnanam Punya Karmanam. How's that verse go in the Bhagavad Gita? Yesham Punya Karmanam. Jnanam Punya Karmanam. Only those who've acted biased in this life and in the previous life with sinful reactions eradicated, no longer see with duality, so to speak. They'll become, can understand, or can, what's the English translation? Become freed, huh? Whatever, can't remember the exact word. But to become free, can engage in devotional service purely or with great determination. One has to be freed of these weights of conditioning. So the process of devotional service is to purify our means of seeing. We see in the case of Duryodhana, he also had a vision Krishna revealed a form of a universal form to him also, but he didn't see it in the same way that Arjuna or here Bali Maharaj is seeing it. He saw it very differently. He saw this as some kind of trick, magical show of this rascal. This rascal's trying to bewilder me with some kind of magical show, but I'm not going to be fooled by his tricks. I don't take this seriously. He's just a magician. He didn't see him as the Supreme Lord. He didn't see Christian devotion. So he can't see. Only one whose eyes are tinged with the salve of love. No one else can really see things properly. Everyone else is relative. And this is the problem. Everyone is judging through their senses and seeing the same thing differently, and you get clashes, you get friction, you get quarrels, you get wars, you get arguments, you get fights, discriminations, and so on. Because we're seeing imperfectly with our imperfect senses. How can you see perfectly with imperfect senses? The senses have to be purified. Thakur Krishna Namadi. And bhagavatam, we cannot see that absolute truth, but when the senses become purified, the Lord reveals himself. Naturally, when we're sleeping at night, when we open our eyes, it's a little hazy, a little difficult, but after a while, when we gain our composure, our vision, then we can see things what we call clearly. Of course, it's still an illusion, but relatively speaking, compared to being in the dream, when we open our eyes, we can see. How do they open? Om Jnana Timirandasya, the spiritual master opens their eyes. It's a torchlight of knowledge. Torchlight. Not just some theory, it brings light. His vision enables us to see things for what they are. Not just say it. Sometimes we just repeat. It's also okay, it's the beginning stage, but the whole idea is that we actually see, not just that we repeat. Oftentimes people say, have you seen God? How do you know? So the devotional service is meant to lead to that realization. We see God in different ways. Not that we just repeat verses. That's sort of an act of devotion, I could say, but there should be some realization there also. Not just theoretical repetition or some faith in something. That's something reality. So if we put those words into practice, then gradually everything becomes revealed. As they surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Krishna reveals himself. We finish the purport. The seer is a part of the whole, but he is not equal to the whole. In this case, the seer is referred to the jiva, the individual living entity. The part of the whole, the seer, is also one with the whole. We have the same quality as the whole, otherwise we would not. As sometimes say, to enter into fire, you have to be fire. So to actually see God, we have to have the same quality to some degree. Spiritual qualities have to be manifested. Not the complete whole. The part of the whole, the seer, is also one with the whole, but since he is but a part, he cannot be the complete whole at any time. We'll briefly discuss that. This achintya bheda simultaneous oneness and difference is the perfect philosophy propounded by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's one of the many unique, you can say, aspects, contributions of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance in this world to establish the path of devotion for Kali Yuga, also to establish the truth through the understanding of Achintya Veda Veda Tattva. The Lord has appeared in this world to present this perfect philosophy. Perfect philosophy. Perfect in every respect, but specifically to deliver us out of this ignorance. To come back again into this material world, and one has to know Krishna as he is. And Lord Chaitanya so kindly appeared to enable us that opportunity through the process of devotional service to purify our sins. The Sankirtan movement is purifying movement, Chetodharpana marjanam, cleansing, just like we clean the temple, we keep everything nice and clean, isn't it? Which we should do. Everyone try to take advantage of the opportunity to keep the temple clean. With a clean temple, the mode of goodness, things are also easier. With a clean heart, then it's easier to see. With clean water, you can see through it. When the water is dirty, you can't see through it. So simply when our hearts are dirty, we have to cleanse our hearts. Cleanse our hearts, how do we cleanse our hearts? Here in chanting about Krishna, particularly in other services, so many services. That's the idea. We eventually can enter into the kingdom of God. So I'm extremely tired, and I'd like to ask if anyone has any questions. That's my question. Do you have any questions? Can you answer my question? You must have some questions. Come on. Or at least you could ask something like, what's the weather going to be like today? Or something. You must have some questions. Why are you tired? Another question. What should I do today? What's that noise? Where's Adikarta gone? You must have some questions. You know where he's gone? Who knows where he's gone? He went out the door. Where else did he go? He went into the car. Where else did he go? Out the gate. That was it. Finished. He's gone. No more. Doesn't exist anymore. Is he existing or not? We can't see him, but is he existing or not?
Yes.
Yesterday there was one lady. What was that sign? Jesus.
Jesus alive.
Huh?
He's alive.
As a live man. Or something.
Vivant. Alive.
He's alive.
She was encouraging us.
Huh?
She was encouraging us. She was encouraging us.
She was encouraging us. That's good news. And she was encouraging us. Jesus is alive. Is he still alive? Is Jesus alive? What do you think? Namatanu?
If he is still alive, maybe he just don't want to come.
Are you still alive?
I hope so. I hope so.
You also look a bit tired.
I heard in a way like if Jesus would be here today, he would be Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
That's you crazy guys. You think you got it all, don't you? Whatever I ask you,
Oh, so was there a crazy Christian coming up yesterday?
Well, I wouldn't say crazy. There's one lady in front of the Harinam party with a little banner there.
I got one Christian came up to me and said, if you don't accept Jesus, you will perish.
Everyone's going to perish. Whether you accept him or not, you're going to perish.
We are in Paris, Maharaj.
Oh, Paris. We're already in Paris. Okay, that's a good one. I thought I was already in Paris. Hey, we never got your book scores yesterday.
No, actually, finally got one small book out. Yeah.
You never reported. That made all the difference. That was the difference between reaching our quota and not reaching our quota. You never even reported.
I said, when I woke up, I sent quickly to Ekadashi. I don't think
Huh?
I sent quickly to Ekadashi earlier this morning.
He never put it on.
Okay. Yeah.
He was on the altar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, we have to put that on. That's the all important score yesterday. Adi Carter did probably more. He couldn't remember what he did. He just remembered, that's all he remembered. He just remembered all the books he saw, but he probably saw quite a few more than that, judging by his collection. So what was my question? I asked you a question. Oh, what was that question?
Do you have a question?
Do you have
No, but and I asked about being alive. Is Jesus alive? So that lady said he was. Do you agree or not? Is he alive?
Yes.
He is alive, okay. Are you alive? Not sure, no. You were very sure. No, he's not alive, he's dead. Dead body. The body, according to Krishna, the soul never dies, Never was there a time when you did not exist, nor I know the kings. Nor in the future shall we ever cease to be. Is that the body? Is he talking about the body? Previous verse he said you change your body all the time, right? Next verse. You change your body all the time. So it doesn't sound like it's the body. So it must be something else that always exists. So to find out that which always exists, that entity has the same quality as the Lord, just different quantity. The material body is different. It's Krishna's inferior energy. That part, as Krishna says, Mame Vangsa Jiva Loke, Jiva Bhuta Sanatana, Kastani and Vyani Bhakti Stani Kashi. The living entity in this material world, I am my eternal fragmental parts. All is eternal fragmented. It's fragmented because we're separated. We've forgotten our relationship with Him. We have a little independence and we misused it to turn away or look away from Krishna, to see things separately from Krishna. Independence means to see something separate from Krishna. We see independently of Krishna. And we see everything. Dependence means we see everything in relationship with Krishna. But the conditioned souls see things separately from Krishna. They see it in relation to themselves, but not in relationship with Krishna. Krishna consciousness is also to see everything in relationship with Krishna. I don't know what it is. Then we become dependent upon Krishna instead of independent. We're trying to be independent. We can never really be independent. Kiva Pran has a question.
Yes.
You had your hand first and then
In the purport, it's mentioned about Mayavad philosophy, and I was wondering, sometimes we may have some devotee friends who is losing the path of Krishna consciousness and becomes to go towards Mayavad philosophy, and I was wondering how to behave towards them, because we were worshipping the Supreme Lord together, having some same idea at some point of time. Now it's not anymore the case, and I'm just wondering how should we interact with that person, because we cannot become yeah, there is a relationship there. It's not someone unknown to us who is trying to.
well, there's different types of relationships. I mean, there's the relationship with those whom one knew, you could say, prior to one's practicing Krishna consciousness. It's one thing, and that relationship will probably be, for instance, if you both come to Krishna consciousness and then one drifts back to whatever conditional life they had before, whether it was material or whether it was impersonal, in the terms of spiritual practice. This is not highly uncommon, that they drift back into that situation. Persons who drift back into that situation of complete materialism is of course quite easy to understand. Persons who drift back, maybe in this lifetime they were very attracted to the impersonal path, the Buddhistic path or something. And if they don't have the faith in Krishna consciousness for whatever reason, they have no taste, for whatever reason it may be by association, they may drift back into the impersonal, say, understanding. How do we relate to that person? There's another type that comes to Krishna. We don't know them at all, but we have the meeting Krishna conscious movement, and then they drift away. The principle is pretty much the same. Although you could say one who is your friend, maybe your relative or something, that will be perhaps a little bit added consideration, because you knew each other when you were kids, or you were in the same family, or married with each other. It could be anything. What to do? Well, personally, I had this direct experience myself. My own wife was like that. She was previously conditioned to impersonalism. She became a devotee. She was daily worship even. She was Brahmin initiated by Thakur Maharaj, and she was drifted back into her impersonal world. So what do we do? How do you deal with that? You don't deal intimately. Respectfully, if necessary in that case, but not intimately. How can you can of course try, but generally they don't. Eventually, yes. We were discussing yesterday with Adhikar, one of our godbrothers, happened to live in Lachua, passed away 4 or 5 years ago, and we both knew him quite well. And Sri Rama said, because he had a real problem with impersonalism, not a problem with impersonalism, a problem with personalism. He was so much conditioned to the impersonal concept of the Absolute. He would find it very, very difficult to accept the personal nature of Godhead. Try as he may. And he did, he fell back. But he came back, he was back and forth. He loved the devotee, he kept coming. And in one sense, he left his body in Krishna consciousness. But he had this great difficulty, Sri Rama one time said about him. He said, he was definitely a Mayavadi in his last lifetime. No doubt. And some or another, he came in contact with devotees and took up devotional service. But he couldn't, it was always very difficult for him to, he wasn't at home, he wasn't comfortable. So what do you do when somebody drifts away into that situation? Of course, the devotee is always a well-wisher, but you don't intimately, you try. Sometimes they become born-again Christian. I've seen devotees even do that. Maybe they were like that before, whatever reason it may be. But it's all part of, as far as I'm concerned, from what I understand, although we don't wish it, of course, and we try to encourage otherwise, but it's also part of what they have to go through. Sometimes you have to go through various things. You get a little good fortune in this life of coming in contact with devotional service in one form or another. This is what we try to do with what happened to us. Maybe we were fortunate to take it a little bit more further, but others may not. But at least they have a little taste, and that will never be lost. It may be covered over, but it will not be lost. Eventually they'll wake up. Eventually they'll develop an attraction to the personal form of God, and that's the idea. Like gradual involvement, gradual development. Unless they're out and out envious of Krishna, especially those who are in knowledge of Krishna, but they hate him or they're envious of him, so to speak. But most people are not. They just are attracted or attached to some degree or whatever it may be. The difficulty with various ways of understanding God, they're not at good association. So what do we do? Well, one thing is we try ourselves to become more Krishna conscious. We try to remain well-wishers. We don't necessarily go out of our way to associate, but if by circumstances we do associate, maybe we discuss some philosophy. It depends on the individual, but in many cases we just try to encourage them in Krishna conscious ways, take some prasadam, come and join us in Kirtan. Many times they like Kirtan, even if they become personally inclined, or whatever it may be, other type of engagements which they may fall into. It's quite common when a devotee, for whatever reason, falls away from Krishna consciousness, they or an aspiring devotee, they fall back into their previous whatever they were into. It's quite common. But that's just again, everything except for pure devotional service is temporary. So it's also for anyone who comes in contact with devotional service in some way or another is understood that this is a matter of time. It may take some time. And we're not the controller of time. We're not the controller of anything in one sense. We try, we endeavor to bring others or to help others to take up Krishna consciousness or maintain Krishna consciousness. Naturally we will feel like that, but it's a fact that many persons will, for whatever reason, will drift away from the practice of pure devotional service. And how you deal with them will vary a little bit in time, place, and circumstances. But we don't We don't intimately mix up means we don't associate with them on their platform. That sounds a bit selfish. But we have to protect our own devotional lives. I remember one boy, I was talking about him yesterday, we had a cart because it was related to a temple he was in. This young man, his spiritual master fell down and he became a bit disturbed. He left the temple and he joined us in Malaysia. I was in Malaysia at the time. He came and joined us, this is in the 80s. He came and joined us in Malaysia, and he was a nice boy from England. And he was very enthusiastic, and he was with us for probably about a year. We were on Sankirtan. He was kind of doing okay. But it wasn't enough for him. It was a foreign country, and it was difficult. He was like a very, expressive person. He liked to talk. He was a bit of a philosopher, I believe, of kinds. So we went together to India one year, and he really got attracted to the VIHE. So he plugged him in with Burjan Pro on the VIHE, and he was also capable of being a teacher. So he was going to be trained. He was being trained to become a teacher in the VIHE, actually, which seemed like a nice service for him. But those days there was difficult funding, so the teachers, they would have to go out in the summer and to go to various parts of the world and collect money to finance the project and finance themselves. He went off somewhere in I don't know, it was Hong Kong or somewhere to collect, and he had a fall down there. Not bad association, lack of good association. I guess it's similar. And he had some kind of fall down. Well, that's not a big issue, but he wouldn't talk about it. He didn't tell anyone. He had a fall down. He started feeling so wretched. He decided he wasn't qualified to be in Vrindavan, so he didn't go to Vrindavan. Instead, he went back to England. He was very embarrassed. He went back to the UK for a while, and he said, "Oh, I just need a little break. I'll keep in touch. I'll visit the temple in England and see if things go on, this, that, and the other." But he fell into a different association in the town he came from. He met his old friends before he became in touch with the Krishna movement, and most of them become born again Christians, and they pounded him with their, positive and negative talk. And because he was very weak, he became a born-again Christian. He wasn't very strong, obviously, in his faith. But he became a born-again Christian. To this day, as far as I know, he's still a born-again Christian. He's still alive. Association, good and bad. So we've got to be careful of association. Especially if our faith is strong, we're not necessarily affected by that, although we may be. You find that on the street regularly when you meet people who have a strong faith, be it whatever it may be, blind or whatever it is, but they're quite convinced. And you try to debate with them or discuss with them. Oftentimes it's very disturbing. Instead of effective, it becomes a disturbance. And you lose your cloudy of some kind. Not that you accept what they say, but your consciousness becomes cloudy and you feel kind of not right about. We don't, well-wishing is one thing, but, getting into these things, you have to be a little careful. Especially with those who are previous friends. I guess you have that experience too. All my previous friends, when they saw I come to Krishna consciousness of some kind, they weren't interested anymore. Didn't really see them again for the rest of my life, practically. And sometimes devotees too. It depends who they are and what they fall into. They fall into impersonalism. That's again depends on the degree, and depends on the reason. But to whatever degree it is, we don't. Depends. Everything is a little bit individual. Always the well-wishing aspect is there, and always the gift aspect is there. You give them prasadam or some gift or whatever it is, some kind word, something or another, if you can't defeat them, which is often the case. Then the recommendation is you don't associate, you keep it at a distance. But you're well-wishing. You're well-wishing. And if circumstance you associate, you just, be a little careful. So, get into an argument or whatever, it may not be very favorable, or it may be disturbing to you, and maybe to them also. If we can, of course, defeat them, jolly well and good, but they were probably defeated already before they left the temple, otherwise. Where they left anyway, or left the movement, they weren't convinced. This impersonalism is very, very, say, dangerous in one sense. It's the greatest obstacle, and you could say a great barrier in pure devotional service. Mayavad philosophy. What Chaitanya warns us carefully not to hear it in a way that, it's like, food may be there, but you don't have to eat it type of thing. You recognize the food, but you don't have to eat it. If you eat it, then you're going to get affected by it. You can't avoid it being there, and the meat is there. You don't have to eat it. So they may be there, their philosophy may be there, their personalism may be there, but you don't have to eat it. You don't have to digest it. You may know about it, you know what it is. Don't eat it. Don't say, I'll experiment. I wonder what you remember. We thought, first you have to taste it first, then you can, understand these things. Oftentimes you get caught by it instead of, understanding it and being able to undermine it or preach against it or whatever you want to call it. You have to be a little, in the beginning stages particularly, a little careful and cautious. Anything else on that? We all have a bit of Mayavad in us. We're all conditioned by a bit. We like to recognize that and try to cleanse that out by personal service. Daily worship is very good service in that regard. And here in the glories of Krishna's pastimes, associated with advanced devotees, prayer, these things protect us from the danger of this Mayavad philosophy. If you have to associate them, pray for protection also. Not just pray for their welfare, but pray for your own welfare. Charity begins at home. Pray for your own welfare, not to come up with wrong association. It's more of a dangerous association, more than that of karmis. Of course, there are, as I said before, it's the boyfriend who's in and out. So we wouldn't cut him off in any way. He was encouraging it because he did so much service and he really wanted to be a devotee, but his conditioning was so super strong. Very difficult. But he eventually did. He left his body more on the devotional side, put it like that. I'm sure he got a devotional start in his next lifetime without so much of the weights of Mayavad conditioning. Anything else? You had your hand up, Raman, you still awake?
Yeah.
You had a question?
I had a question about this. You're not this body which Prabhupada is repeating.
Okay.
He repeated this for 12 years. You're not this body. But how do you? It's so easy for that statement to become a slogan.
That Prabhupada what?
Yeah, that you're not this body.
You're not this body. Yeah, he repeated it.
Yeah, it's very easy for it to become a
slogan.
Yeah.
A slogan. It takes a long time to sink in, a slow gun.
Yeah.
Very slow. It takes a long time before we're defeated. And it sinks in. In fact, it does. I mean, it may sink in theory. Yeah, so then?
So my question is how to actually see the seriousness in that statement and apply it.
Good point.
Practically.
How to apply it practically in our lives. We are not the body. You are spirit, soul. How do you think? What's your take on that? How long have you been practicing Krishna consciousness?
I've been practicing 6 years.
6 years, so you're halfway there, 12 years. So how do you see that? What does it mean in your life?
The way I try to apply it is when the going is really tough, when the body, the mind gets a lot of falsity, gets a lot of challenge, and you feel like you're on the edge there. Then I use that statement to remind myself that I don't have to take the reactions of the body seriously.
Okay.
That I can step back.
You intellectualize. You can intellectualize there.
Yeah.
You can remember the verse, and you try to use it at least in terms of a philosophical application. Even if there's not a realization there, it helps you. It helps you not to become overwhelmed by the difficulties or conditionings around you. Anyone else have any practical that's one practical application of that statement, to remind us constantly not to get carried away by bodily sense gratification, or carried away by the mind, or carried away by that conditioning, carried away by the body's ups and downs, the difficulties therein, being in this world. Remember, we're aloof from it. That definitely helps. Although it may not be with realization exactly, but that does help. It definitely helps us not to become overwhelmed by it, even if we're still feeling it. Anything else? There's no other way that this statement is of any use in our lives. It's just a slogan which we use for preaching. You're not your body. Bang. Any other way? Or how can that slogan or that statement become realized in our lives? Anyone?
We can see that this body is changing constantly. Means
Body is what?
body is changing constantly. Means we are getting older and
that's
older.
some kind of logical approach, but maybe that helps us to accept and have the faith in this statement. But how in terms of how we're going to realize it, say, why did Prabhupada put so much emphasis on it?
We can see that there are more pain in the body, like when we are young. So eventually this body is, wearing and tearing now. It's after 30s, so I can feel it now.
Yeah, okay, we can realize the body is a pain, but I guess everybody can realize that without realizing or thinking even that we're spirit soul. Most people feel like that, but they don't accept that we're spirit soul. They think we're just a chemical combination, which is unfortunately a painful one. But how is this statement to also be relevant in our lives in terms of why Prabhupada put so much emphasis over 12 years? Why didn't he just say it once and then get on to something else? Well, he did also, of course. He didn't just say that. There's a path, process of meant to be realizing that factor. Why he spoke it so much? Well, two reasons, at least. One is there's always new persons coming to Krishna consciousness. The basic philosophy should be there. And two, because many devotees, even after 10 years or more, are still on the bottom platform of life and are still not very elevated in Krishna consciousness. So definitely that constant reminder. Don't forget, you're not your body. Sometimes when people are slow, you have to keep reminding them over and over and over again for a long time. Don't do this. Don't do that. Don't forget. You're not whatever it is. Sometimes we have to remind you a lot. Thinking is a basic premise, you could say. One of the basic premises of Krishna consciousness is, philosophically speaking, is you're not your body, you're spirit, soul. Not the only one, but that's primary one. And we have to base everything we do on that understanding, on that premise. Of conviction, we're still maybe not fully convinced. Some maybe, but many are not. And new people, of course, generally speaking, have no conviction. It needs constant reminding, remembering. But that's the only thing Prabhupada talked about. He did talk about other things. What are you? He talked about that too. And he talked about the method of transfer, let's say, realization between the body identification and that of Brahmabhuta platform of the spiritual realization. Probably certainly all Bhagavad Gita is more or less a step in that direction to realize our eternal identity apart from this body. But we have to apply it. There's a process which needs to be applied. So that being a constant reminder, the body is important because it's easy for conditioned souls to default back to their previous or their conditional perception. But we're not this body. Don't forget we're not this body. It's a big relief in one sense. The body which suffers, well, the body doesn't really suffer, it's dead matter. But because we identify ourselves with the body, therefore there's fear, there's suffering. One who doesn't identify himself with the body doesn't have to suffer even if the pain is there. Because they know they're not this body. They realize they're not affected by it. So to come to that realized platform is a prerequisite for going back to Godhead. It's not in itself back to Godhead exactly. We have to realize what is the nature of the soul in eternity, not just that we are eternal. It's only one aspect of our nature. Any other ways we can, that statement of Prabhupada, that repetitive statement over and over again, you're not the body, maybe different wordings, all that stuff. How that is relevant to us, why Prabhupada did it, and what are we supposed to do with the statement? Anything else?
My understanding on this topic is that it's an instruction that we should realize it. And to realize these statements means that we should purify this body and our actions, our thoughts, our words. And so we have to follow the process seriously to purify and to realize.
Prabhupada one time said, if you haven't realized it, you haven't really started your spiritual life. We're just approaching it. We haven't really started. It really starts with the Brahmabhuta platform, Brahmabhuta Prasnatma Sochiti. When one comes to that platform, above the modes of nature, above this bodily identification, then one engages in pure devotion. The moment we're engaged under a pure devotee, in acts of devotion, without the realization of our actual identity, and maybe still covered over by various material activism, desires, and so on.
And so as Vaishnav was showing, what is very helpful for me is to consider from my side that this body is a tool to serve Krishna. And Bhakti Maharaj was showing us how to engage all our senses for Krishna's service. And on the other way, for Krishna, this body is also like a communication tool with us. Because in our practice, sometimes we can feel lack of enthusiasm and so on. We can have some disease manifesting. And I try to understand why Krishna sent it, why you are sending this disease. And usually we know that this is a disease or some pain somewhere. Yeah. And I try to say, okay, there is an external reason. Okay, I hit myself with the wall. Okay, but there is probably an internal reason also, and something to understand from Krishna that, okay, now he's sending a message. What should we understand? Why? And this helps to understand that we have a connection with him, that he is guiding us on his way, on his own particular way. Yeah. But this body is like our communication tool with him also, for the time being.
Mind, subtle and good. So constantly reminding us, and we need to remember this. That's not all we need to remember. You got this, well, what do you talk about? I'm not the body. What else you talking about? I'm not the body. Anything else? No, I'm not the body. The positive side. We want to talk about, as we heard the other day, the artha and anartha. We want to hear the artha, that which is of value, not just the knowledge about the anartha. We want to hear that which is valuable, knowledge. So, yeah, to remind us, without that realization, we can't really relish the transcendental nature of devotional service. But we try to see things from a different angle, not just from the body platform. Like seeing through the eyes of scripture, and to hear topics which help to elevate us, to purify us beyond the body platform. Anything else?
Yeah, just because I was thinking to something. In this material world, there is always danger to come back to the initiate. I say in this material world, there is always danger that we start again to identify strongly to the body.
Very much.
So it's like on the road when you take the car. Sometimes you have panel danger. There is wild animal who can cross the road.
Wild animals. Yeah.
It's not that there is always this wild animal, but you have to be vigilant.
The risk is there.
So the role of the Acharya, like Prabhupada, is to keep us in this vigilance.
Yeah.
Because at any time you can start again to identify to the body and fall down.
Yeah, even at an advanced stage, it happened to Bharat Maharaj. It happened to Bharat Maharaj, at least in the Shastric description. He experienced that fall down. Even at a very advanced stage of sadhana, he was still fell down in devotional service by
So we should never think, okay, now it's okay, I'm in Krishna consciousness.
Yeah, take it for granted.
So you are not the body. You are not the body. Always remember.
I'm not the body, Prabhu. Just will you shut up and listen to me? If you say that to me again, I'm going to kick you out of the temple. You really upset me, Prabhu. Yeah, constantly. On this Danic path, razor's edge path, we have to remind you sometimes. And people see that people slip back ways. Even take driving, for instance. You know, when you take a driving test, you're like 100% careful, right? You start slipping back into your old habits and doing that. Sometimes you have to remind, don't do that. Cooking is the same. We slip back into our old systems of cooking the way I want, not the way Krishna wants. Dances, we need to be reminded. Start acting on the bodily platform of life again. An easy habit. Reminder is there, but there should also be the positive reminder, not just the negative when you're not the body. It should be positive. And what are we? Yeah. What are we supposed to do, and how can we realize what we are? One thing to say, no, that on its own will lead to Mayavad. Honestly. So probably didn't just talk about you're not the body. We talked about who are we also? What is our relationship? That must be there, otherwise it will become more or less Mayavad philosophy. Just to know that it's not the body, not enough. Just ABC. Okay, we're finished there. Sure, Prabhupada.
Welcome. Janananda Goswami maharaj ki.
Have to take some rest, I'm so tired. What's the plan today?